Way back in the wonder years of the early 2000s when I started playing guitar, my first guitar processor was a Zoom GFX 707, and I was sitting in my room one night just, noodling around making some horrendous guitar noises with whatever guitar I owned at the time, and my uncle was babysitting me and my two sisters who were both younger than me, so I'm, being a typical teenager, just like being in my room, doing my own thing, playing guitar, and he hears me playing guitar and comes in and basically goes, "Oh, give us a shot." And he's a really, really great bass player and a pretty handy guitar player as well. So he starts playing all this stuff, which was really, really cool. And I'm scrolling through presets for him, going, "Oh, you can do this sound and this sound." And it comes up on this sound called Van Halen. And I didn't know what the hell that meant. And it comes up with Van Halen and he goes, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And starts playing the riff to Unchained. Now, I didn't know what the hell he was playing, but I was like, man, that's really cool. And also, man, Uncle Tony's way cooler than I'd expected. This guy can rip. So I said to him, I was like, man, did you come up with that? Or what are you doing? And he goes, no, it's some Van Halen. Here. He goes out to his car and he grabs Fair Warning and goes, listen to this, you'll really like it. And that was my introduction to Van Halen, and Fair Warning is still one of my favorite rock albums of all time. It's easily my favorite Van Halen album, and Unchained is one of my favorite riffs of all time. So that's how I learnt how to play that song, just the way he had figured it out by ear. So, last week we had a look at Lay It Down by Rat, which I figured out by ear, and I kind of learnt this mutt version of Unchained. And I just thought it was, the way everybody played it. And I was playing it on YouTube, on a video ages ago, and a bunch of people were like, oh, that's not how you play that. Go and watch this video by this guy on how to play it. And so I'd watch a video where someone's playing, that D to D sus4 thing. They're playing it here. I was like, oh, well, pretty much the same thing. You're just voicing, instead of using these strings to play D and D sus4, you're just playing the same voicing there. So what? Who cares? And then somebody sends me a video and they're like, no, this is how you play it. And there's several versions floating around. And I guess unlike Lay It Down, the riff for Unchained, really the trick is it's parallel major chords. He's playing, I guess it's all tuned down a half step, but it's essentially D major, B flat major, and C major, all the way up to F major. And then he does this kind of inversion where he plays this version of C right around the 8th fret. So that's pretty cool. I guess that inversion of C there is the one you really do have to grab, but whether you're playing it down here, and then, or you play it here, doesn't really matter too much. And so I was like, yeah, cool. I understand that there's phrasing things that I'm probably not playing right in there anyway. So for a long time I was like, yeah, whatever. And then someone pointed me to a video where Eddie's playing it like this. So this is apparently the way Eddie plays it, where he's actually playing these root 5 bar chords. So you're playing D major at the 5th fret like this and getting your sus4 on with your pinky. Which is very, very clever. You can see where he would come up with a riff. It's like if you're sitting there going, the motivation would be, well, what other chords do I know? I know B flat and I know C. I just kind of do the same thing. You could see a parallel universe where Eddie Van Halen sat down and went, or you can also see several parallel universes, which probably came true, where people learnt Unchained and just went away and did stuff like that and wrote their own Van Halen knockoffs and, played it to their mum, and their mum went, that just sounds like that Van Halen record that you're listening to. That's a pretty cool little system, right? The parallel major to sus4 chords. It builds tension in a really lovely way. You get the classic 80s metal progression. With a kind of different slant on there, and you can see how, Eddie would have influenced guys like George Lynch and Warren DeMartini and everybody. Reb Beach from Winger. I know a bunch of you guys mentioned last week that the little riff that I wrote after I butchered Lay It Down reminded them of Winger, and that would be right. I love a lot of Reb Beach's stuff. You can see how Warren DeMartini would have probably pinched the tuning and the voicings for Lay It Down from Unchained. You can see how Reb Beach might have been influenced to write 17 from that. It's really one of these kind of like musical memes, the major to sus4 thing, chugging, I guess we're in drop C sharp, and that kind of thing. And keep in mind as well, man, this is like 81 and Eddie's playing in drop C sharp. You know, it's not until like 9 or 10 years later that you get Jerry Cantrell come along. I'm probably playing that riff wrong as well. If I am, let me know. So yeah, Unchained is an interesting one in this kind of series. And like I said as well, you know, with Lay It Down, when I did that video a week or so ago, I was like, oh, should I do Lay It Down? Should I do Unchained? I think Lay It Down's got more stuff that can go wrong. And so many of you guys were like, oh, it's kind of like Unchained. Everybody plays it differently. And as with last time, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, sure, it's a great riff. Eddie's a great player. But rather than like try to be an Eddie Van Halen clone, why don't you look underneath what he's actually doing and go, okay, cool, Eddie had a cool style. Who was he drawing on? What tricks was he using, and how can I like incorporate them and be inspired by those kind of ideas? You can see a riff like Lay It Down is very clearly inspired by Unchained. That chord there. It's kind of doing the same thing. Actually, somebody wrote me an email today and they were talking about Lay It Down and the weird finger positions, and they were saying that they had teched for Jake E. Lee for a while, and apparently Jake and Warren lived together and they kind of worked on that riff together, so there's a juicy little morsel to throw into this whole kind of series. The thing with this as well is that main riff for Unchained is really awesome. He also does this thing as well, where obviously he's using a flanger, but he kind of turns the flanger on and off, which is like a classic Eddie thing to do. He only uses it on the low notes. So whether you play the riff here or here, that's probably harder than the actual riff, is getting the like on and off with the flanger. See, if you just play the riff with the flanger on the whole time, it sort of like lacks balls and it's not quite there. The rhythm part in this, for the verse as well, that whole... As you can see, I always play that wrong as well. It's meant to be something like... There it is, outlining a little, what is that, an F? Outlining an F and a C. It's a very clever way of refashioning all of that, and I actually reckon my favourite part of the song is what he's playing under the guitar solo. The rhythm guitar part there is just wicked, and that pre-chorus, ba-da, ba-da-da-da, I just can't play it. Like, I've never sat down and learnt that part. So yeah, that is, there's a few strategies on how not to play Unchained, and you know, a shout out to my Uncle Tony for getting me onto Van Halen, because fair warning, such an amazing album. You should go and listen to it today, because there's a few real corkers. That whole album just sounds like, you know, you got a knock at the door on like a Saturday morning and all the Van Halen showed up and they were like, hey, guess what? We're going to play a gig in your living room tonight. It's a really, really cool album the way it's produced. It's almost like underproduced, and it just sounds so raw, and the playing so inspired on there. And you know, you got songs like Mean Streets and One Foot Out the Door, where, you know, he's clearly channeling Alan Holdsworth with some of those widdly diddly licks. I whatever the hell he's playing. So this is enough of me butchering Eddie Van Halen. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you have suggestions for songs that you want to show me how, or that you want me to show you how not to play, get them in the comments, because I've got a few ideas. There's a few real classics that I butcher that I'm sure a lot of you guys do as well. And yeah, it's kind of like a confessional club for guitar players, isn't it? It's like, oh, you play that like that too? Yeah, I do as well. Peace out, guys. See you soon.